Yes. Excuse me. Yes, everyone, welcome to the live stream. Once again, I appreciate everyone showing up this Sunday morning. Should be a lot of fun today. And once again, I know I've been having a lot of trouble with the internet at my home. So once again today, just like last Sunday, I have no internet and I'm actually streaming through the hotspot on my phone, but I expanded my plan. I know we got cut off last week, which I'm really sorry about. So we should be okay. But any other issues or anything, please, let me know. But once again, we're gonna go over a topic that I kind of covered, I don't know, maybe 2-3 months ago. But with this internet connection, I didn't want to do something different in case we got cut off. So this will be a review, maybe a little bit for some people, but I really want to do a deep dive into making sure you're really getting an adequate amount of protein. Because to me, eating enough protein is so key to maintaining muscle mass, to putting on muscle, to maintain low body fat levels. So eating enough protein is so important. Plus, when you're fasting and you're giving yourself a smaller eating window, it could be a little bit more challenging to take in enough protein. So let me go through exactly like what we're going to talk about in this live stream. Then I'll say hello to everybody. Okay, how to get enough protein when intermittent fasting. And I also want to make a note. 9/11. We're never going to forget 9/11. So I'm going to keep that up there. Patriot Day, obviously this whole presentation. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later on, maybe in the Q&A at the end. So we're going to go, well, first, I always like to review. It's interesting, I've been getting a lot of new people on TikTok, asking me a lot of different questions just about intermittent fasting in general. So first, I just want to do a quick review of what intermittent fasting is and time restricted eating is. Then I want to go into a deep dive into all the benefits of eating enough protein, whether you're fasting or even when you're just eating a good healthy diet. I want to go over how much protein you should eat. I'll give you my requirements and my recommendations. Then I want to give you a couple of hacks and some things you can do even when you're fasting, and I'm probably personally going to do this, ways you can take in a little bit more protein. And then I'll give you examples of meals at the end, right, of just how do you structure a meal to make sure you're getting enough protein. Well, let's say hello to everyone. Once again, I see a comment from Harriet that only showed up on my phone. So I'm going to make sure, but this is obviously Juicy's here. Juicy's doing great. This is what Juicy has to say. Mike, honestly, I need you for comfort. I'm not feeling that great about myself. That's it. I want to build muscle. One good thing, though, is it's easy for me to put on muscle. That's great, Juicy. I'm glad you've done so well, though. You've lost so much weight. I think you're doing incredibly well. I think you might be on a diet break now, which I think is a good idea. It all comes in cycles. It's nice to go in and out of a deficit cycle. You got to eat good quality food, all the time, but there are times when you really should be at maintenance calories, if not above, for long-term weight loss and just for maintenance as well, right? Hey, Gene. Gene's here. Gene's in the house. Thanks for showing up. Gene's here every week. I'm assuming, Gene, that this is it. This is the week you got right back on track, doing that very low-calorie diet, which I'm really excited to hear how you're doing with that. Mr. Patel from the UK, once again, watching from London, which is so exciting. Sorry about the Queen. Yes, really, I appreciate you being here. And I think I'm getting a few more comments from on the phone. We'll see how it goes. I hope the sound is good. I hope the picture quality is good, because like I said, I am streaming this whole live presentation through the phone. And I just see here, I guess they're coming up now. Hey, Jeff, how you doing? Thanks for showing up. Jeff is saying, good morning from Texas, where the air conditioner is still working hard, I can imagine. Going to try the OMAD diet. OMAD stands for the 1 meal a day diet, 1.5, and that's today. That's what I recommend. And we're gonna talk about all the different fasting strategies. But if you're new and you don't know what Jeff is talking about, when I do the 1 meal a day diet, traditionally the 1 meal a day diet is when you fast for 23 hours, then you eat one big meal within a 1 hour eating window. But I think to take in, and it really coincides with this presentation, to take in an adequate amount of protein, to make sure you're taking in enough protein, I think it's really important to maybe do the OMAD diet with 1.5 meals, meaning that you have your one big meal with a good amount of protein, your vegetables, your healthy fiber, and healthy fats. But then to make sure you're getting an adequate amount of protein, you're also going to have a smaller meal, prioritizing protein, maybe an hour and a half before your one big meal. So you're really doing maybe more like a 22-hour fast. And maybe you would take in, say 25, 30, even 50 grams of protein with, maybe a 4 to 8 ounce piece of animal protein, maybe a little bit of fat and fiber, like a half an avocado, and then eat your one big meal. And that's exactly what this presentation is going to be about. When you're doing these fasting strategies to either lose weight, to maintain weight, or just for good health, you're interested in autophagy, keeping insulin levels low, maybe you're insulin resistant, you want to reverse insulin resistance and you're fasting all the time, it's important to take in an adequate amount of protein for sure. Now I'm going to lower this. I feel like I woke up a little late today. I want to cough. I don't want to disturb anybody. Let me get the volume back up. I think we're okay. Now we're off and running. Okay, I think Juicy got a couple of more questions here. Hey Mike, I have done absolutely, no resistance training, and I'm a cardio machine, especially through running. So he does a lot of cardio, Juicy. He's a young guy, Juicy, too, or gal, I'm not even sure. I barely lift weights, and that's my own fault. I thought I should lose weight first. You're so young that you probably have so much muscle on your body anyway, so I wouldn't be concerned. But in general, whenever you're losing weight and whenever you're restricting calories, it really is important to do some type of resistance training to maintain your muscle mass. There's pretty much an endless amount of research on it. So just start now. You're going to do great. You don't have to kill yourself. You can go to the YouTube channel. You can look at some of the programs that I recommend. But if you just spend 20, 30 minutes twice a week doing a full body resistance training workout, I think you're going to do incredibly well. You're going to put on muscle, like you said. You'll put on muscle so easily. Start lifting. That's great. Hey, 𝘾𝙊𝘼𝘾𝙃𝙄𝙉𝙂 is here. Oh, okay. And congratulations, 𝘾𝙊𝑼𝑃ℎ𝑗𝑒's daughter just won a fitness contest. Her daughter looks incredible, shredded, looks amazing. So I'm really, really happy for you guys. That's really exciting. I think you said it was in Las Vegas. I saw some pictures of it. She really looks great. I was so busy preparing for this, I didn't have time to Google it, and I'm sure there'll be YouTube videos on the whole contest. I'd love to see it. So I'm really happy for you. That sounds great. Thanks for showing up too, 𝘾𝙊𝑼𝑃ℎ𝑗𝑒. That's great. Okay, now for anyone new, I know this might be a little bit of a repeat or review for people. Let's first just go over what is intermittent fasting, right? All it means is that you're compressing your eating window, right? You're going through periods of eating and not eating. Like a typical, most popular way of doing fasting, intermittent fasting or time-restricted eating, is something called 16-8, where you fast for 16 hours, you take in all your calories within an 8-hour eating window. And there are multiple benefits for doing that. I think the biggest benefit is that it's probably the simplest and easiest way just to eat less. You're going to be reducing calories. It could be a little counterintuitive if you've never fasted before, I've never tried this before. You think, oh, I'm going to gorge myself if I only give myself an 8-hour eating window, but really the opposite is true. I would say 90% of the people just eat less without counting calories. So it's a great way to reduce calories. Plus, it's a great way, like I said, to keep insulin levels low. Insulin's a storage hormone. When insulin is low, it's easier to burn body fat, right? Plus, if you suffer from any of those metabolic syndrome type thing, if you're pre-diabetic, if you have type 2 diabetes, if you're insulin resistant, it's good to go through periods in a fasted state. It can possibly reverse that. It's just a great way to lose weight, great way to burn body fat, great way to reduce calories. And there's also other benefits such as autophagy, like when the body recycles and fixes weakened damaged organelles. So there's a lot of good health benefits to fasting too. When compared to calorie restriction, it's hard to really say if intermittent fasting is more effective. I personally think it is, even though the research is somewhat mixed on it. A lot of the new researchers are saying, yes, it works, it does work, but it may not work any better than just restricting calories. I personally think it does because you're getting the best of both worlds. You're eating, stimulating growth, mTOR, and you're not eating, you're repairing and fixing things. Just a great way to reduce calories. But I think one of the biggest mistakes people make, and one of the biggest challenges, and that's what this presentation is about, is making sure you're taking in good nutrition and enough protein with your smaller eating window. So it's so important. So and let's just distinguish between the difference between intermittent fasting and time-restricted eating. I always say this: intermittent fasting just means that you're using these fasting strategies intermittently, once, twice, 3 times a week. Whereas if you do it every single day, let's say you're doing that 16-8, and you're doing it every single day, I would call that time-restricted eating. And that's even more critical to make sure you're taking in enough protein if you're doing these fasting strategies every single day. Oh, Juicy, you're a guy. Oh, great, Juicy. I never knew. My name is Nicholas. Oh, great, Nicholas. I'll start calling you that. Fantastic. I like that name. Instantly, that was a possible name for my son, Nicholas. I really like the name Nicholas. My right arm is so much smaller than my left. That's really common. Don't worry about it. It's interesting because my left arm is a little bit bigger than my right arm. This is when I was really into bodybuilding, and I'm a righty. And I always tried to figure out, why is my weaker arm bigger than my stronger arm? One theory, it may not be true, but it makes a little bit sense to me, is that, like, for example, if you're doing a barbell curl, your weaker arm is actually working harder. And why it's weak is you probably don't have the neuromuscular control as maybe your right side, and it actually gets a little bit more hypertrophy, gets a little bit bigger. But don't worry about it. But I wouldn't do more work on one side than the other. Just train your arms evenly, and they'll both grow. You'd be surprised. Okay. Thank you. Oh, it was the bikini division. Oh, that's great. Really cool. That's great. See, I don't even know all the different classifications anymore. I used to be really on top of all this stuff, and I'm really not. So I'll definitely check the whole thing out. Thanks, Carol Jean. That's great. I'm left-handed, so that's why I thought. It's interesting. It could be, you said which arm is bigger? The right arm is so much bigger than the left, and your left hand. That's interesting. Yeah, interesting. All right, cool. Okay, so now we just did a quick review on what intermittent fasting is. And just keep in mind, when you're in a fasted state, you should, I get this question all the time. In my opinion, I'm not a big fan of dry fasting, even though you can do it. I think you should stay well hydrated, drink a ton of liquids, half your body weight in ounces a day. So if you're 200 pounds, you literally drink 100 ounces of water. I prefer mineral water for the electrolytes, for the magnesium. A little bit of sodium helps you absorb the water a little bit better. Plus, when you're in a fasted state, it's nice to keep your electrolytes up. I'm a big believer in drinking black coffee, green tea, herbal teas like hibiscus tea. Helps keep hunger at bay. Plus, it's good to stay really well hydrated. So I don't necessarily think dry fasting is such a great thing. Okay, let's see. No, Mike, haha. I said my left arm is like, oh, I gotcha. I thought that was because, well, it's hard. It's really hard to say. If it's, I think a half-inch difference to me, it may seem like a lot, but it really isn't. It's so common. You notice that I notice with people calves, like right and left calf. When I'm walking on a path, I'm always looking at people, like I'm looking at their physiques, because it's just, what I've done my whole life. And I always see a tremendous difference in people's calf size, which is really interesting. Let's see. Okay, she divided less than a month ago to get ready and enter the class. That's amazing. She looked incredible. So Carol Jean saying her daughter really didn't only prep for like a month, which is really amazing. So she just stays in top shape all year round, which is incredible. I'm really excited for her. Hey Jean, once again, $5 super chat. Really appreciate it every single week. It helped me keep this channel going. I really appreciate it. Okay, so Gene is saying I did start last Monday. He's on this very low calorie diet. Everything went well. And Friday night, I gorged on junk food, but then got back on the very low calorie diet Saturday morning. Not proud. I wouldn't worry about that, Gene. If you're, like I said, if you're doing 1,000 to 1,200 calories a day, once a week, to fill a big glycogen stores with maybe a little bit of a gorge day, very similar to the presentation I did last week, talking about calories, carbohydrate cycling. Try to do it as clean as you can, though, when you're doing the gorge food. Just up. I don't think it's such a bad thing to one day a week up your calories. Just try not to do it with junk, like the processed food. Try not to do it with cookies, cakes, and desserts and stuff. Even a little bit of clean, like a little bit of Bry's ice cream, I don't think it's so bad. All you're getting is some sugar and milk. But you don't want to have, go to Dairy Queen or something where they're mixing, they're mixing candy bars with it. You know what I mean? Just up your calorie, maybe go potatoes, sweet potatoes, eat some more carbs, just eat a little bit more, have a little bit of a binge day once a week. I don't think it's so bad. But as you know, don't get upset if you wake up the next day and you're 4, 5, 6 pounds heavier. It's mostly water weight. Just think, to gain 1 pound, you would have to, of body fat, you would have to eat 3,500 additional calories. I always give this example. A banana is 100 calories, even though it's mostly carbs. You would have to eat 35 extra bananas to gain 1 pound. To gain 5 pounds, what's 35 times 5? It's ridiculous, right? 115 bananas. So just think, I'm sure you're going to be heavier today, but don't get upset. It'll come right off when you go right back to that very low calorie diet you're going to be doing, today and tomorrow. So at 6 feet, 160 pounds, what would you say is a rule of thumb for an adequate amount of protein for muscle mass? I would say, I'm going to get into this in great detail, but a quick way of doing it is you could just times 160 by 0.7. That would be one way of doing it. The ideal way of doing it, which I'm going to have a whole slide on it, is to figure out what your body fat is and then multiply that by 0.9 grams. I think that would be ideal. But, you know, bodybuilders and physique athletes, and maybe even Carol Jean's daughter, I mean, a lot of people just like to go pretty high protein, just multiply their body weight by 1 gram. I'm going to put you at somewhere about 140, 130, 140 grams of protein a day. I think would be ideal for you, Nicholas, you know, for sure. That's what we said, Nicholas. I want to make sure I got the name right? Because that was one of the names we were thinking about naming my son. Make sure I got that right. I think you said Nicholas. I guess my brain, my short-term memory is not as good as it used to be, right? Now that I'm 60. All right, let's see what we got. I still lost. Oh, wow, that's incredible. So Jean had a cheat day like that, and you still lost 5 pounds so far. That's fantastic. So you must have been down. You may have been down 7 or 8, that's incredible, though. You're gonna do amazingly well. You're gonna reach your goal weight. I think your goal is to do it by New Year's, right? Which is great. Decided, 3.5 weeks ago. Incredible. Your daughter really stays in amazing shape all year round. I always was a believer. I know, like traditionally years ago, you know, bodybuilders and physique athletes would really bulk up off season, but I always felt like it was always better. Never gained more. Like a guy never gained more than like 10 pounds. Gals maybe even less, you know, so that's incredible. Gwen Liftpal. Hey, Gwen, how you doing? Thanks for showing up. I appreciate it. Juicy, this works. Okay, Juicy, Nicholas, this works for me, but I'm having a binge day. I would do them, and I like that. I think that's a great way of doing it. That if you are going to have like a big binge day, and that's typically what I do on Sundays myself, is you do it with a nomad meal. You just have one big meal, so it still kind of keeps calories under control as opposed to binging all day. But then psychologically, you got to figure out what works with you. If you just have one like kind of a binge day, have a couple of meals that are high in calories, and you find it so satisfying that it carries you through the whole week, and you look forward to it once a week, you're gonna have to figure out what works for you, right? Okay, so I think I clicked the wrong buttons there. Let's go. And once again, just a review for everyone. Let's go over all these different. You have so many different options when it comes to intermittent fasting or time-restricted eating. And in my opinion, even a 12 to 14-hour fast is an incredible way to get started with intermittent fasting. You know, I know a couple of people maybe in the group did purchase my course. I have that 4-week low-carb intermittent fasting course. There's even a bonus week in it. And that's how I started people out, simply just doing a 12 to 14-hour fast. So if you have anyone new to intermittent fasting, any family members, any friends, or you want to introduce it to them, just start them. Make it so easy. A 12 to 14-hour fast really is effective. There's even some research showing. I always bring up this study about the gals. Unfortunately, the women had breast cancer. Someone did a study on them and had them fast for just 14 hours. And they actually, it dramatically reduced the reoccurrence of breast cancer just from a 14-hour fast. And they were also allowed to drink like green tea and herbal teas in the evening. So even a 14-hour fast, I think, is a great way to reduce calories and kind of introduce your system into intermittent fasting. So it really is, I think it really is great. Okay, this is Nicholas. Mike, I went to this same restaurant that I used to go to when I was 215. So Nicholas went down from 215 down to 160 pounds, which is really impressive. I'm so proud of him. Oh my God, I couldn't even eat half what I used to. No, it's so true. That's so true. Your stomach shrinks. I don't know if that's scientific or not, but I think it does. That's what I think the fasting does too, to a large extent. It makes it harder for you to eat more when you do eat, as opposed to just restricting calories and eating multiple meals a day. I don't think there's any really science behind that. I just find that to be the case, even working with so many different people. So and then once again, the two most popular intermittent fasting strategies I think is 16-8. I prefer 18-6. That's my favorite. But you fast for 16 hours, taking all your calories with an 8-hour eating window. You can extend that a couple of more hours, do like an 18-6. Right, you fast for 18 hours, 6-hour eating window. Let's see what Jean's got here. Jean. Okay, to be precise in weight, at 263 pounds last Monday morning and weighed 252 this morning. Whoa, that's awesome. But I figured half of the water loss is water weight. I totally agree with you. The first week, you're going to lose so much water weight because, like you said, Gene, you really depleted those stored carbohydrates. For people who are new to this, you know, when you're eating carbohydrates, whatever you don't burn, like say you had a big meal, right? Whatever you don't burn up like right then, those excess calories gets stored away. Like body fat actually gets stored in fat cells, like fat gets stored in fat cells. Excess carbs get stored in your muscle and your liver in the form of glycogen. You know, a big guy can hold 2,000-3,000 calories of carbohydrates within their muscles, and then there's always a correlation to how much water you hold, depending upon how much carbohydrates you're storing. It could be 3 or 4 grams. So you can easily, like Gene, the first week can lose 8-9 pounds because he's a relatively big guy. So totally makes sense to me. But that's great, Gene. I bet you did lose about half water, half body weight the first week. Going back to it. So Nicholas again here. Mike, is it okay? Is it okay to do light boxing when in a fasted state? I'm scared of losing muscle, but don't worry about losing muscle mass, Nicholas. Just make sure you're eating an adequate amount of protein, like we're doing like this. I don't want you starving yourself. Eat a good healthy diet. At 160 pounds, calorie deficit would be about 1,600 calories roughly, maybe even a little bit more. On maintenance days, you can go to 2,000, 2,100, 2,200 calories. Just make sure you're taking in, a good, complete sources of protein, like we're going to be talking about. Eat your vegetables, have a couple of fruits. Just eat healthy. Eliminate the processed foods, and don't worry about losing muscle mass. At your age, it's so easy to put on muscle. You're going to do incredibly well. Hormonally, you're in a perfect state, and it's important because, like I keep on talking about, you're still growing. So make sure you're getting in calcium. Eat your Greek yogurt. Just make sure you're eating healthy, okay? And you're not overdoing it, with the fasting. And a little bit more aggressive intermittent fasting strategy. It's a 24, where you fast for 20 hours, taking all your calories within a 4-hour eating window. And what I like about all these different intermittent fasting protocols or time-restricted eating protocols, if you're doing them every single day, is that's a great way to cycle calories without necessarily counting calories. And I talk about this like to death. Like one day you can do a 16-8 and maybe be at maintenance calories. The next day you can do a 24, right? Only give yourself a 4-hour eating window. You can eat less, and then you're in a calorie deficit. So if you find looking up all your foods and counting calories to be really tedious and kind of annoying, I love the idea of just keep on varying your intermittent fasting, a time-restricted eating strategy to put you in and out of a calorie deficit. And it's just kind of fun, too. Another really somewhat more aggressive thing to do is a 24-hour fast, which I think is a great intermittent strategy. Maybe once a week or once a month, do a 24-hour fast, right? The longer you fast, most people feel, most experts feel, the more autophagy you get, the more cleansing you get, and fixing of those weakened damaged organ outputs, which is kind of cool. Then you get the 1 meal a day diet, which we talked about, 𝘾𝙊𝘾𝙃𝙄𝙉. I like to do more with the 1.5, 1.5 meals to make sure you're taking in enough protein. And then there's another strategy called the alternate day fasting. I know Jeff has been doing that for a while now, where you pretty much eat every other day. A traditional way of doing it is you fast for 36 hours, but you're still allowed to take in some calories, maybe 500 to 700 calories, and then you give yourself that eating window, and you eat normally like for a day. I think it's another great way. And I also think just literally the 2 meal a day diet, when you're only eating 2 meals a day, even if you're just eating breakfast and dinner, which people wouldn't necessarily call that long of a fast, but if you're just eating 2 meals a day, it's a great way to reduce calories. It's a great way to minimize those insulin spikes. I think it's a great way. And my favorite, obviously, is to incorporate a 2 meal a day diet with one of the other fasting strategies. Like say you're doing a 16-8, but you only eat 2 meals a day. But then I also probably want you to add maybe like a protein shake or a protein bar or something like that, because I want you to make sure you're getting in an adequate amount of protein. And that's pretty much what this whole presentation is going to be about. Okay, on Wednesday, this is Nicholas. On Wednesday, I had a treat. I went to 2,581 calories. The next day when I woke up, I felt more heavier, but felt better. I think that's what you got to do, Nicholas. You got to cycle in and out. You got to have some of those 2,500 calories a day days. I think that's really good for you, for sure. 2,500 calories on an 𝘾𝙃𝘾𝙃 day mixed with dessert. Interesting. See, I personally would have a hard time eating that much, but if you can do it in one meal, great. And let's talk about this, because I do get a lot of questions about this, and it's going to be, I didn't do a specific slide on it, but a lot of people ask the question, like, how much protein can you absorb in one meal? And I have to say the research is a little mixed. For many, many years, people felt, 25, 30 grams of protein is all the body can use for hypertrophy to put on muscle mass. And then I read a meta-analysis, and just from personal experience, and then they kind of said, no, there's so many different factors. How big are you? Like, for example, if you're a 250-pound guy to a 120-pound gal, you can obviously utilize more protein, than someone smaller. Also, your age, how active you are. And then after reading this meta-analysis, they kind of upped it to maybe 60 grams every meal. And there's also equations if you want to use them for based on your body weight, how much protein you should take in per hour and how much the body can utilize. And then I've even read studies talking about people who literally just did the 𝘾𝙊𝘾𝙃𝙄𝙉𝙂 diet and took in like 80 grams of protein in one meal. And they compared the people who ate the same amount of protein in 3 or 4 meals. And it seems like the body's so smart, it seems to utilize this protein. So I would say, so my takeaway would be, if you can split up your protein to maybe at least like a 6 or 8 hour eating window consistently, it probably would be better. If you're taking 50 grams here, 50 grams there, 50 grams here, right? It'll probably be better. But it's more important just to make sure you're taking in an adequate amount of protein. And you can look at it based throughout the week or throughout the month. That's why I don't mind someone doing an 𝘾𝙃𝘾𝙃 diet once a week or doing a 24-hour fast. I don't think you're going to lose muscle mass as long as you're taking in an adequate amount of protein, consistently throughout the week, throughout the month. And I always like to look at things like that, even with calorie restriction, all these things. Day to day is much more difficult. Look at things week to week, month to month, quarter to quarter, or more important, like to be in a calorie deficit for 3 months, even though you're up and down from day to day, from week to week. Maybe you had a couple of low protein days, but overall, over the course of the month or the quarter, you've been taking in an adequate amount of protein, enough fiber, enough, vitamins, minerals, and nutrients, you will be okay. Even if you're fasting for 24 hours twice a week. But if you look at the whole month or the whole 3 months that you're eating healthy, you're going to be doing well. So look at it like that, more than specifically day in, day out. Okay, Carol Jean. I fasted all day yesterday. I break my fast around 1 or 2 today. When I get home, that sounds great. Love it. That's cool, Carol Jean. That's great. You're doing great. Okay. I want to gain 10 pounds, all muscle. I don't know what to do. Do you think it's a good idea for me? Yeah, I think, why not, GC? Nicholas, why not gain 10 pounds of muscle? I think you can. Stick to your basic movements, right? Stick to your push, your pull, your benching, your rows, your pull-ups, maybe light squats. I know you're on the young age, so, the thing with you have to be a little bit careful, because I think you said 16, 17. There are things on the end of your bones called growth plates. That means sometimes you can go to your doctor, your pediatrician, they x-ray you and they can see how thick the growth plates are. See, the growth plates are like the softer cartilage. You can damage them with very heavy weights. I wouldn't do extremely heavy lockout type training, meaning like bench pressing really heavy and locking out your elbows, or squatting and locking out. You got to be careful with a little bit of the compression of your joints with heavy weights. But to put on 10 pounds of muscle, Nicholas, you're going to have to be, in my opinion, in a positive energy balance, meaning that you're going to have to be over maintenance calories and make sure you're eating enough protein. Not every day, but pretty much consistently. Just like the example I gave, when you want to lose weight and lower body fat, at the end of 3 months, you had to average in a calorie deficit. But if you want to gain 10 pounds of muscle at the end of 3 months, you should be in a positive energy balance. You're going to have to be over maintenance calories. And I know it's so difficult. You've done so incredibly well. You went from 215 down to 160. But now if you want to go in a little bit of a growth phase, people call it clean bulking, dirty bulking. I just be even 200-300 calories in a positive energy balance. Just make sure you're eating enough protein. You can put on muscle, for sure. No question about it. Okay. What do I think of duck meat? I think it's good. Maybe a little on the fatty side. I can't say. Maybe that's big in the UK. The only time I really ate duck, I went to Ireland with my family. My wife's family, literally before my kids were born, 20 years ago. For some reason, duck was really big in Ireland. I loved it. I thought it was incredibly good. I turned 17 in 10 days. Wow, and happy birthday. That's great. Well, we'll talk about it more when we get closer, but you're getting really close. That's cool. Really exciting. Okay, so let's go over the benefits. The benefits of eating enough protein. And I think they're somewhat endless. Okay, I think by far is the most important macronutrient. So the three macronutrients are your proteins, your fats, and your carbohydrates. Some people consider alcohol to be like a fourth category because alcohol does have calories, 7 calories per gram of alcohol. The negative thing about alcohol is that it is somewhat of a poison, a toxin to the body. So the body prioritizes it. The liver wants to just burn it up, get rid of it. So when you're drinking, whatever other food or calories you're taking in, it's going to be second before it's burned. Alcohol is going to be just removed from your system. So keep that in mind. Well, I think protein is the most important macronutrient is because there are essential, we're going to talk about there are essential amino acids, meaning that amino acids are the building blocks of the body, the building blocks of the protein. If you're not eating these non-essential amino acids, you're not going to be in good health. I mean, you can get away with it for weeks and things like that, but consistently, if you're not getting in enough of those essential amino acids, and there are 9 of them, you're not going to be in good health. Just like there's essential fatty acids, there are certain fats that you have to get through your diet, or else you're not going to be healthy. That's why protein's so important, right? Eating those essential fatty acids is so important. But when it comes to carbohydrates, there are no essential carbohydrates. Meaning that even if you went on like a 0 carb diet, which I don't necessarily think is a good idea, your body can always make glucose. It's called gluconeogenesis. Your liver, your body can make glucose from non-carbohydrate sources. It can take proteins. It can take body fat. That's why, like ketones, like when people go into ketosis, you can make, ketosis is not making glucose, but your body can just adapt and make and increase glucose within your system for your brain, because your brain always needs a little bit of glucose. The body needs some glucose. So the body can make glucose if it needs it. So I also think why protein is so important is it's probably the most satisfying food you can possibly eat, just for satiety. When you eat protein, you have a big piece of salmon, you have some red meat, you have some steak, even you have some whole eggs. I even think, vegetable sources of protein like beans, things like that, they're incredibly satisfying. So I find that people, and studies do back this up, the more protein you eat, obviously you reach your point of diminishing returns at some point, but the more protein you eat, the less calories you're going to be consuming because you're so satisfied. Plus, protein also has the highest thermic effect, meaning that when you take in 100 calories of protein, you're going to burn up 25-30% of that protein just processing and digesting the protein. It's harder to digest protein as opposed to just having like something that's a very quickly and easily digestible. Like, for example, you eat a piece of white toast, you eat a bagel, the body just like burns that up, spikes your glucose, spikes your blood sugar really easily. You have like 2 hard-boiled eggs, you get a teeny bit of an insulin spike. It's mostly protein and fat. It takes time for the body to digest and process and utilize all that protein. So I think the thermic effect is really important. The fact that it pushes off hunger is incredibly important. And I always talk about this, the protein leverage hypothesis. And I'm a big believer in this. There were researchers that came up with this theory saying that you will keep on eating. This has to do with the satiety part of protein. You will keep on eating until you reach your protein requirement. And like I said, it could be a little debatable on what your protein requirement is. I think I have a couple of other slides and we'll talk about it. I discussed it briefly. Let's say even it is 0.7 times your body weight. So let's say you're 150 pounds and you want to take in 110 grams of protein. If you keep on eating foods that are low in protein, let's say you're a big carbohydrate eater, let's say maybe even you're a vegetarian and you're eating just tons of grains and you're eating pasta and rice, and you're getting some protein from some beans and some soy and things like that, but you're eating maybe only like 35-40 grams of protein. The protein leverage hypothesis will say you're going to keep on eating until you reach this protein requirement. So you're just going to be hungry. You're going to have to eat so many calories to reach your protein requirement. So I'm more in the camp of eating foods that are high in protein, like whole eggs, like salmon, like animal proteins. It could be lean if you want to, not go crazy with the fat, and even taking maybe some protein powders or maybe eating protein bars, just to fulfill that leverage protein hypothesis, meaning that you want to get an adequate amount of protein or you're just going to always be hungry. And the same thing, in my opinion, goes through with just if you're low on any vitamin, mineral, or nutrient. You're going to keep on eating. Your body will let you know. let's say let's say you are low on magnesium or something. You're going to feel off, and you're going to try to keep on getting it. It's going to make you hungry, but you might not be picking the right type of foods, right? That's kind of like what the protein leverage hypothesis is. If you're not taking in enough protein, you're going to always be in a state where you feel like you have to overeat. And I totally believe in it. And this is not like a mainstream thing, and some people don't agree with it, but I think there really is something to it. And like I said, okay, I'm just reviewing, if protein, very satisfying, fills you up, stops you from overeating. Okay, so I think we got a couple of questions from Nicholas. Let's see, at 17. I love having my last meal of the day 3 to 4 p.m. because it gives you a head start in your fat to stay until the next day. I think that's great. That's an ideal way of doing it, Nicholas. I guess when you're a little bit older like me and maybe some of the other people in the room, once you're married and have kids, I like to eat dinner with my wife and kids. My kids are at college now, they're when they're home. But even my wife, I may not eat till 7 o'clock. It just socially just makes more sense for me. But I think that's a wonderful way of doing it. But I like to say at 8 o'clock, I'm done eating pretty much like 99% of the time for exactly what you're saying. Okay, let's see what Gene's got to say. Mike, I was wondering if it's not better to take some fat along with whey protein shake, as there is no food source in nature that is only protein without fat. I would somewhat agree with that. See, what I used to do, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit today too, is it's totally, I think, good and okay to take in protein with fat. Once you throw the carbs in there, it gets a little bit more complicated. There are like pros and cons. But what I always used to do, and I still do it sometimes, when I would do a protein shake, I would throw in like a teaspoon or even sometimes even a tablespoon of fish oil. Those omega-3 fish oils, like a 𝘾𝙊𝘼𝘾 is the brand I really like. Even though it does add like a tablespoon is 130, 140 calories, I think there is something to it. I think it's totally fine. I think it's good. I totally understand what you're saying. So I even have a slide, I think it's slide number 7, talking about protein hacks. And one of them is, like just eating like 3 hard-boiled eggs or 2 hard-boiled eggs, even outside of your fasting window, just to make sure you're taking in enough protein. And that was my rule for that. Just make sure it's protein and fat, or just protein. Don't do protein and carbs though, because you don't really want that big insulin spike. Especially too, taking in a little fat, it may minimize the glycemic index, the glycemic load of that. Because a whey protein shake will spike insulin pretty high. It will. It just, it just does. But if you took in like a little bit of fat with it, maybe even, threw in a quarter of an avocado or half an avocado, or threw in some maybe fish oil or something like that. Even a little olive oil may not be so bad. I think it would probably be a good thing, Gene. I like how you're thinking, actually. Oh, there's another thing. Okay, this is Nicholas. Another thing some people need to realize: sleep is so important. Once I stayed up all night, the next day I weighed 3 pounds heavier and looked puffy. It's true. The biggest thing about that is that, research has documented this pretty well, is that when you're sleep deprived, you become insulin resistant. Even one night of sleep deprivation, like say one night you only slept 3 hours. This happens to me a lot. Sometimes my head starts spinning, and even though I feel like I'm very insulin sensitive and I'm somewhat fat adapted, I'm a fat burner, if I only sleep for 3 hours one night, I will wake up the next day and I would be insulin resistant, meaning that even whatever food I ate, even though the pancreas might be producing insulin, my cells are not responding to it. So my blood sugar could literally be elevated, and maybe even an unhealthy state for a good portion of the day. So I always find that when I didn't sleep well, I know it's counterintuitive, because some people, when they don't sleep well, they want to eat for energy because you're so tired, or maybe your cortisol, maybe your stress hormones are elevated or overly elevated, because cortisol helps release glucose, from the liver too, and you just want to binge eat, you want to gorge yourself. But that's probably the worst time to do it. So what I do, if I don't sleep well, I literally maybe do a 20-hour fast that day, like literally, because I want to reverse that insulin resistance as quickly as possible. Or you can do what I do all the time too. You go for like an hour, or 30-minute or 60-minute walk first thing in the morning. I find like that really helps too. But it's really interesting. Sleep deprivation definitely is not a good thing. You learn the hard way, just okay. Say, I'm saying this because when I eat a hard-boiled egg alongside my protein shake, keeps me full for hours. I definitely agree too. Yeah, the fat and the protein combination is more satisfying. See, that's the one negative thing, and you're right on it, Gene, is like, for example, if you're doing like a protein shake, like a whey protein, just with water and nothing else, it's going to give you a pretty good insulin spike. I find that, me too, it'll make me hungry if I did that, like not post-workout or not pre-workout. Like I'll do something like that pre-workout because I just want some amino acids for the workout. I want a little bit of calories, a little bit of protein. Or if I did it post-workout, you're hungry and you're kind of like replenishing calories. But if I just had like a whey protein shake, say 10 in the morning, I'm just going to have a whey protein shake on an empty stomach as like my first meal of the day, I'm not going to be too satisfied from that shake. But if I did more of what Gene's talking about, like if I did a whey protein shake and ate a hard-boiled egg with it, or put my fish oil in it, or did a whey protein shake and threw in half an avocado, I'm going to be satisfied. So I totally agree with what you're saying, Gene. No doubt about it. And I have to say, like you're saying, like the two most important things to track and keep control of is calories and taking in enough protein. And whatever you can do to reduce hunger, that's almost, but even though I'm a big believer in like these low calorie diets, and I always give the example, I ate both ways and my blood work is better when I eat low carb, my triglycerides are low, but the biggest thing is I am so much less hungry by minimizing carbohydrates. No question about it. I eat a big bowl of rice, like say I do my sushi, but I don't refrigerate the sushi the day before. Even with the fat and protein of the sushi, eating all that rice made me hungry. Essentially, I just recently had a new MRI for my knee, which I'm going to do I think I'm going to do a whole live stream about my knee recently. I just had a new MRI, a 3T, last week in New York City. And, I get stressed out from those MRIs because I'm a little claustrophobic. I don't like going into that machine. You're in there like a coffin. It freaks me out. So I treated myself right after the MRI to I went to a sushi place and had some whole bunch of sushi. I loved it. But obviously, since I didn't refrigerate the sushi, I ate a ton of white rice. I had a couple of salmon and avocado rolls. Then I had sashimi on top of like a bowl of rice. I loved it, but I have to say, I was ravenously hungry about an hour later. Before I got home, because, there's a lot of traffic leaving the city. I left like rush hour. It took me like an hour and a half to get home. Typically, I can drive home from Manhattan in 50 minutes. I was ravenously hungry, because I must have got such a big spike, even with a little bit of fat and protein in the sushi from eating all that white rice. So the key to, besides eating healthy, like taking an adequate amount of protein, getting your vitamins, minerals, nutrients, your fiber, your magnesium, your potassium, you got to figure out a way where you can eat that's not going to keep on spiking your hunger and making you hungry. And Gene, I like what you're talking about. Just adding one hard-boiled egg, which is 7 grams of protein, what is it, like 70, 80 calories, to a whey protein shake, if that sustains your hunger, is great. It's totally makes sense. Some people are concerned, I don't want to add fat, I don't want to add 70 calories. I think if you, by just adding that 70 calories and a little bit of fat, if that made you less hungry for hours later, it's a home run. I love it. I think it's great. Hey, Carrie, thanks for showing up. Awesome. Thank you. Can you add MCT? Oh, yeah, you definitely can add MCT. You got to just be a little careful, right? MCT are those medium chain triglycerides. Some people can, if you're not used to it, you know what I'm talking about. You can get the runs from it a little bit. But sure, I think it's great. Even coconut oil, right? You can do a scoop of like organic coconut oil, which is half MCT. I think it's a great way to do it. Kerry may be, fooling around with the keto diet, so, he's probably familiar with the MCT. And also MCT is easier for the body to make the ketones. I think it's great. Yeah, MCT is great. Awesome. Nicholas, Mike, I was 215. The first 15 pounds came off in a week and a half. What is that? I think, unfortunately, Nicholas, even though it's totally okay, most of it must have been water weight. Hard to say like what percentage of body fat you lost, and probably you may have lost a teeny bit of muscle because when you dramatically lose weight like that, you're going to lose a little bit of muscle mass. It's just how it is. Not much though, but I wouldn't worry about it. I would probably say more than half was probably water, most likely, but really hard to say. Okay, Glenn, I love sushi so much I can eat. Yeah, me too. I love sushi. But like that trick I talked about, I did a couple of videos on it. There's that hack, and I believe in resistant starches. Some people don't. I know Gene's a follower of Dr. 𝘾𝙃𝙄𝙉𝙂. He did a YouTube video about it saying he doesn't believe it. But I found a couple of studies, and I even follow a guy. He's kind of a keto guy, a young guy in great shape. I think he gets a lot of sponsors. What he does, he has these TikTok videos where he wears a 24-hour like blood glucose monitor. There are these blood glucose patches like diabetics wear them, but you know people wear them too for health. Where you put this patch on, and you use your iPhone, and you can constantly measure what your blood sugar is. And he did some experiments, and one of his biggest videos, I think it got like a couple of million views, is on eating white rice, one day unrefrigerated, and then one day refrigerated, and then he monitored his blood sugar response like 45 minutes after eating the meal. And this is what happens when he ate just plain white rice that was still warm, like I had that sushi in the city. He got a tremendous spike in blood sugar. But then when he refrigerated the white rice for 24 hours and then ate it, he didn't get that much of a blood sugar spike at all. So what happens when you refrigerate like starchy carbohydrates, like a rice, like a white potato, it chemically changes to some degree and becomes somewhat resistant to digestion. And I definitely think there's something to it. Like when I had that sushi in the city, I was ravenously hungry an hour later, meaning that I got a big spike in blood sugar. Insulin was produced to lower my blood sugar. Maybe I lowered it too much, who knows? But when I have sushi, like at home, I always buy it the day before. Like I love like salmon, avocado rolls. Every now and then I eat them. I've done some videos on it. I'll refrigerate them for 24 hours, and I'll eat them the next day. And I find that I'm not ravenously hungry an hour later when I have a couple of sushi rolls that were refrigerated. So that tells me, without wearing a blood glucose monitor, it tells me that I didn't get a tremendous spike in blood sugar, that white rice did become a resistant starch. And every now and then I'll do this with white potatoes. I love eating white potatoes, like baked potatoes, things like that. I'll refrigerate them the next day and just like slightly warm them up. I think there's something to the resistant starch. I know Dr. Stephen Gundry likes it. I think Dr. Berg on YouTube, I think he talks about him too. But it could be debatable, but I think there's something to it. Okay, so Nicholas, I personally hate snacks. I'd rather eat nothing but a banana or an apple. This is when I'm on a weight loss mode, so this does not mean I hate food. No, that's okay. I think it's good. Hey, whatever works for you. If you can eat a banana and an apple and not be really hungry afterwards, I think it's great. You know, a lot of vitamins, minerals, potassium. Hey, Carrie, wow. Oh, I'm glad you like that. Yeah, resistant starches. There's definitely something to it. I much prefer meals than snacks. Sounds good. Cool. All right, let's go over. I just want to really drive home the point. These are the 9 essential amino acids, and this is what they mean with the term complete protein. And so, for example, like all animal proteins like chicken, fish, meat, poultry, whatever, they're all complete proteins. They have all the essential 9 amino acids. Like eggs have complete proteins. If you're eating like a vegetarian, there's certain like vegetable type proteins where you have to combine them, like rice and beans. You know, you always hear people combining proteins to get complete proteins. And the main, like the 3 main essential amino acids that are really good for hypertrophy, for maintaining and putting on muscle mass, are these branched chain aminos. So I even highlighted them here, which is isoleucine, leucine, and valine. These are the branched chain amino acids. That's why I do feel like animal proteins are really good for you. Like, you know, within reason. I lean toward being more of a pescatarian. I get most of my animal protein from fish, from salmon, sardines, you know, Arctic char. Actually, we had incredible sole last night. We actually had it 2 nights in a row. That was like on sale at the store. We loved it. I love it. I'm a big fish eater. And eggs. I like fish and eggs. Lately, I've been eating a lot of Greek yogurt, which I love, but I like to cycle in and out of Greek yogurt. But it's so important to get in these essential amino acids. It's critical. Okay, let's see what we said. You look amazing. Oh, thanks. Nicholas says I look amazing for my age. Oh, thanks, Nicholas. I really appreciate it. 60 has been rough on me. I mean, it's just a psychological challenge turning 60. I much prefer meals over snacks, right? We talked about that. Okay, let's see. Carrie, I bought sardines, but can't bring myself to eat them. I know. Well, I mean, like when I was a kid, I wouldn't even consider eating sardines. I actually love them now. I mean, I hope you bought the ones that have a little bit of flavoring to them, meaning that You can buy the ones that are like lemon flavored, or you can even buy them that they put a little tomato sauce in them. Like I said, my favorite brand is Henry and Lisa's, but I think Carrie. I think you're UK. I'm not sure. Hey, once again, my short-term memory. Look for a brand. I personally like PBA-free cans. If you can buy them fresh, incredible. But even if you buy the ones that are unflavored, if you can squeeze on some lemon juice, like things like that, it makes them a lot more palatable. I also love. I get them in extra virgin olive oil. If you buy the ones that are just in water, you can add some extra virgin olive oil on top. You can do a little bit to them. I mean, I love them. They're so high in those omega-3s, though. Those, the EPAs. It's interesting. I just listened to another incredible podcast. My man, 𝘾𝙊𝘾𝙃𝙄𝙉𝙂 Labs. He did a whole thing. It was an older podcast. I loved it, on like preventing depression and mood and improving people's mood. I think mental health is such a neglected issue, especially in the U.S. I mean, it's really, especially with the post-pandemic, I think everyone's in somewhat, post-traumatic stress, from this whole pandemic and just all the craziness that's going on, in the world in general. And he did a wonderful podcast, How to Alleviate Depression Just Naturally. And the key takeaways were definitely exercise. Like, exercise works just as well as almost any type of antidepressant medication you can take, or whatever, like working out, and even easy exercise. Like I said, I'm such a big component of walking. Like I said, you walk 30 minutes 3 times a day, it's gonna be hard for you to be depressed. It really is. You have to work at it, right? You're gonna work at just thinking about every negative possible thing to really be depressed if you're walking 30 minutes 3 times a day. Then he talked about how even if you're taking an antidepressant medication, that say, it's not necessarily like a lot of these antidepressant medications, they don't really necessarily increase serotonin. Serotonin is that feel good like hormone. They improve your absorption of it, like the neurotransmitter, how everything works. And by taking, he did a whole big segment in this podcast just about fish oil, about those essential fatty acids like the omega-3s, getting like a minimum of 1 gram of EPA. Is so important. Anywhere from 1 to 2 grams helps the body utilize serotonin so much better. And I cycle in and out of taking fish oil. I eat so much fish, I feel like I don't need it, but I just started again. I started taking, my 2 favorite brands are Carlson's and Nordic Natural. So I definitely would consider taking some fish oil, especially if you're not eating fish. I think it's so important to get those essential fatty acid. And then he went into some real stuff that I've never tried, so psychedelics for depression and things like that, which is kind of interesting. But it was a great podcast. I always say I'm going to put a link. Sometimes I forget, but remind me if I do forget. I'll put a link to that podcast underneath this video. It's such an incredible podcast. Anything he puts out is so good. He's a professor from Stanford, by far the smartest guy in the podcast hemisphere, and just he talks in a way that's easy to understand because he's a professor. Some of the other people I follow, you need a PhD in bioscience or nutrition to follow along with them because they get so technical. But Andrew Huberman's not like that. I think he's the best. Let's see what we got here. Okay. It's a tail. Oh, flavored. Try the flavored one, Carrie. I think it makes a big difference. If not, you can do it yourself. But I like the lemon and the tomato. There's even, I forget, there's another flavor I buy too. I used to buy Wild Planet. They have a lot of good flavors, but it's not a PBA-free can. I'm kind of a little neurotic about that. I try to go with like a PBA-free can. Let's see, Nicholas, Mike, what happens if you eat more protein than you need, but you're not in a calorie surplus? Well, if you eat too much of anything, it can be converted to body fat. That's just how it is, too many calories. But if you're not in a calorie surplus, I bet your body's going to use it. Protein does other things besides just building muscle, right? Bone, skin, hair. Your body's like collagen. Your body's just a matrix of proteins. I think you'll utilize. I mean, I wouldn't go crazy. Like if you're 160 pounds and start eating 200-300 grams of protein, I think you're just not gonna. The body's gonna poop it out. Who knows? Your body's just not gonna use it. But I wouldn't be worried about taking in too much protein in general. I think most people don't, obviously, I don't think taking anywhere near enough. And the people who don't like eating too much protein, like say you're a vegetarian, even Walter Longo, we talked about him in the past. He wrote the book, The Longevity Diet, and he has that fasting mimicking diet. There's that whole balance between mTOR, between growth and like recovery, like the AMPK and the sirtuins and things like that. And like autophagy would be the opposite of growth, right? Fasting is the opposite of growth. That's why I like fasting so much, more so than calorie restriction, because I feel like you're getting the best of both worlds. Like say you're giving yourself an 8-hour eating window. You ate 2-3 meals with an 8-hour eating window. Yes, mTOR, you're getting that growth signaling. But then when you're fasting for 16 hours, autophagy starts kicking in, insulin is low, AMP, all the other things, all the repairing stuff start going in. So I like the cycling. Like you want some mTOR, you want to go in and out of it. The people who are concerned about too much protein, I don't think if your kidneys are functioning properly, I wouldn't worry about taking in too much protein with your kidneys. But, some people feel that if you're constantly in a growth mode, constantly spiking mTORs, constantly eating protein like all day long, 6-7 times a day, that protein also can make bad things grow. Like say you have cancer cells, something like that. You can feed cancer and things like that. So I think the combination of spiking mTOR and then recovery is just ideal. But that's when people don't. That's why like Walter Longo's the fasting mimicking diet. He has this diet plan where for 5 days you eat a very, very low protein, low calorie type diet, maybe 600-700 calories for 5 days. It's like being in a fasted state. But for example, if you did that 500 to 600 calories or 500 to 700 calories with all protein, that would be spiking mTOR, and he feels like you wouldn't really be getting, it wouldn't mimic fasting. But when you're eating like low protein, you're kind of mimicking fasting to some degree, as long as you're not eating high glycemic type carbohydrates. He isn't. He has this thing called, I think Gene knows the name, but I think it's called Proline. A number of my clients have tried it, where they send you the food for like 5 days, and it's pretty much like low glycemic, high fiber, higher fat, very low protein type 5-day meal, which stimulates, would mimics like fasting. It's like being in a fasted state. It doesn't stimulate those big spikes in insulin. Keeps mTOR at bay. Kind of interesting. Okay, so let's go over. I've been talking about this. Let's go over the formula again for. Okay, we got a few more questions here. I must have missed it. Do you eat pineapple? I love pineapple. It's a kind of sweet, seasonally I'll have it, but I absolutely love it. I don't eat too much pineapple, but I do love it. Gwen, I love sardines. I got some with mustard. Whoa, and hot sauce. Ooh, that sounds pretty good. Love it. I love it. So we got. So how many calories should I eat to put on muscle? And also, should I spread these meals? I know you said to lift weights when you have glycogen stores. I think, with you, Nicholas, a calorie deficit for you should be like 1,700 calories. A calorie maintenance, maybe times 160 by 15. Let's say 2,200 calories would be maintenance. You start eating 2,500 calories a day. I think you'll be in a good surplus to put on some muscle. Make sure you eat, I would take, let's say you're 15% body fat, 160 pounds, you want to eat about 120 grams of protein a day. If you can split it up into 3 different meals as opposed to one meal, I think that would definitely be better. So for example, say if you did 40 one meal, 40 the second, 40 the third, that's 120 grams of protein spread out throughout the day. Or maybe you're doing a 16-8 within an 8-hour eating window, however you want to do it. I think that would be ideal for you. And don't overdo the weight training. Just a couple days a week, a full body weight training. Okay. Gene, whenever I feel down, I do a 20-minute HIIT workout on my stationary bike, and it snaps me right back. Totally agree, Gene. I know there's nothing better. It's interesting because I used to do all that stuff, but I always talk about my knee. Before I had my knee, if I was in a bad mood, I go run 5 miles. You can't be in a bad mood after you ran 5 miles. It just humanly, it's the dopamine, everything gets kicked up, and you just feel incredible. But I've kind of, for many, many years, I used to feel like I needed that, like I needed to do those hard workouts, more like a HIIT, to get that response. But I find now that I program myself, and just because I know how good it is for you just to walk, that I can get the same buzz, the same great feeling from just taking an hour-long walk. That's what I'm going to do today after this podcast. It's easier, I think, to get that buzz and that uplifting feeling when you're working out hard, but you really can get it as well from those long, easy base building workouts too. So the combination obviously is the best. Okay, so this is Nicholas. For this reason, I take vitamin supplements on top of nutritional meals. Is because I want my body to be amazing when when I'm somewhere around 23, 25. I agree. It sounds good. Hey, this is what Jeff says. I also find exercise suppresses my appetite for a while. No doubt about it. I find it is too. I find like the harder exercise, I find suppresses appetite temporarily, but sometimes you get hit later, depending upon your overall nutritional thing. Sometimes you kind of deplete glycogen. You can get like ravenous. Like if you're doing those high intensity type training, like say you're doing those spin classes, but I think really is an overdone version of a HIIT type training. You're doing it for like an hour long, you do too many intervals. You feel, you don't feel hungry like an hour afterwards. Within an hour and a half, 2 hours afterwards, you'll eat anything. So it just depends on your overall plan. Okay, so this is what I would consider to be, from looking at the research and just from experimenting with so many things over the years. For me, this would be the ideal amount of protein. You take 0.9 grams and you multiply that by lean body weight. And once again, it's hard to say what your lean body weight is. And a client of mine just did a DEXA scan. That's when they do that. Like, they take a lot of x-ray pictures. And supposedly it's a real accurate way of determining body fat. I thought his reading was so much higher than what he really was. Because I used to do the calipers. Like when I worked in those big box gyms, you would be introduced to 5 new people. I would have like 5 new clients every day, and I would do caliber testing on them. I got really good at it. I did that for a decade. I would test 20, 30 people a week, and I was so good at it. I haven't done it now in years because I find it, I think people get too upset when you take their body fat and it's really high and then it doesn't improve quick enough. People get so upset. So I don't even test people's body fat anymore. But what I'm saying, even the DEXA scan, I thought was crazy inaccurate. I mean, it was shocking how inaccurate I thought it was. When I was in exercise physiology in lab, we used to do underwater weighing. I found that to be really accurate. But as long as you have an approximation, like if you're 150 pounds and let's assume you're 20% body fat, that leaves you 120 pounds of lean mass. Multiply that by 0.9, that gives you 108 grams of protein. That's a good way of doing that. And another good way to determine your body fat, you can just go Google it. There's different calculators. You enter your age, your height, your weight, your activity level. It gives you a general idea. And another really easy way, I think, of doing it is to just go 0.7 grams per pound of body weight. Right? So if you're 150 pounds, times that by 0.7. I don't have my calculator here, but I think it's going to be pretty close to 108 grams of protein. And this is key. Calories and taking in enough protein, is so important, I think. Let's see. Okay, Nicholas, despite my distaste for it, I find that apple cider vinegar suppresses appetite. Yeah, I think so too. Plus, it helps control blood sugar post-meal. There's definitely some science behind that, the acetic acid. And it could be balsamic vinegar, it could be any type of vinegar. Helps with blood sugar. Okay, Nicholas again. I think I'm very different. The worse I look, the more motivated to lose weight. No, it sounds good. I don't know. I'm a little bit like that. The worse I look, I don't feel like I look that great now. I just, turning 60 and this and that. So I think I'm going to I'm going to try some different things going forward. Okay, let's talk about this protein hack. This is kind of interesting. Like I talked about, months ago, and I even did some videos on this. There's definitely a good amount of research out there now saying that taking in protein earlier in the day really is good for muscle hypertrophy, for maintaining muscle mass. But since most people skip breakfast and then they break their fast like I would, maybe 12, 1 o'clock, and you're doing more 1680 or an 18-6, where you're taking in your calories in the evening, you may be missing a little bit of protein earlier in the day. And this has to do with circadian rhythm, that 24-hour internal clock. So many different reactions and genes and stuff are regulated by when you wake up in the morning, when you go to sleep at night, when sunlight hits your eyes, and when you eat your first meal. So what I'm going to do, and this is what I'm talking about, back to Nicholas' question, where I don't feel like I'm looking as great as I used to. I feel like maybe I lost a little bit of muscle. Maybe just my age. I don't know. Maybe it's my knee and I can't deadlift and squat like I used to and things like that. Probably a combination of all those things in my own personal case. But I am going to make a conscious effort now to definitely start taking in a little bit more protein earlier in the day. And even though it's going to be breaking my fast to some degree, this goes back to what Gene is saying. I'm going to try it. And I've done this years ago too. So I'm going to do, you know, my favorite thing is an 18-6. I'm still going to stick with my 18-6, where I'm going to fast for 18 hours, taking all my calories within a 2-hour eating window, right? Prioritize protein in both those meals. Maybe eat 50 grams in one meal, 50 grams the next. That's 100. Then I'm also going to do like a protein shake or maybe a protein bar. That's going to give me another 25, 30 grams. Maybe I'll even do 60. I want to take a minimum of 150 grams of protein in a day. But I'm also, around 10 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to do what like Gene was talking about a little bit. I'm going to do like a protein. I'm not worried about fats. I'll take some proteins and fats in around 10 o'clock. Yes, it's going to technically break my fast, but I'm not going to look for a tremendous spike in insulin. I'm going to probably eat like 2 hard-boiled eggs, which is only going to be about 14, 15 grams of protein. But I think for my circadian rhythm, and I know this may be getting a little away from intermittent fasting, but I think for my circadian rhythm, for making sure that I'm taking in some protein earlier in the day based on the new research, I think it's going to be a good thing. And I'm going to start doing that on tomorrow, on Monday, consistently. Either I'm going to eat 2 hard-boiled eggs, or I may do what Gene's talking about. I may do a protein shake with 1 hard-boiled egg. You know, me, I'm such a fish eater. I may have 4 ounces or 3 ounces of smoked salmon at 10 in the morning. You know, the essential amino acid supplement, those EAAs. I might do something like that. I'm not sure. I'm probably going to lean more with real food. I'm going to do that going forward. So what I'm going to do going forward, if anyone wants to join me with this, is I'm going to be doing this with 18-6, like I talked about, 2 meals protein shake. And I'm also going to do what Gene's talking about a little too, is that I'm also going to do a little bit of carbohydrate cycling. Like once every 4 or 5 days, I'm going to give myself some carbs. I'm going to try to really put on a little bit of muscle going forward. And I'm going to use that philosophy for the next few weeks and see how that goes. Let's see, we got some questions here. Okay, this is Gwen. My weight, HDF says my body fat is 35.7. I'm 5'1", 153. 5'1", 153. That might be a little high, 35.7. Hard to say. Like I would go up to my wife, not that talking about, my wife is like the ideal weight. And my wife is 5'2". I think she's like 114. You know, she's my age. You know, and I think she's like ideal body fat. I mean, it'd be nice for a woman to get down into the like, you know, the low 20s, you know, if you can. Gwen, it's hard to say. I mean, why don't you round that off at 30% when you do your calculations? Go with that. I think that's pretty reasonable. I mean, you don't have to be exact. I mean, that'll get you enough protein. So 30% of your weight of 153. So very similar to the example I gave. That would be 20%. It's going to put you at, you know, 100 grams of protein a day. I would say something like that. I think would be pretty good for you. I think that would be an adequate amount of protein. And every 4 ounces of chicken, fish, and meat, yeah, I think I have a slide on that, is about 25 grams. I think that's the next slide. Hey, Mike. Mike, what is the main reason you fast? Fat loss or general health? You know, for me, it's a combination of both. You know, I think it's the easiest way for me to control calories. I like the health benefits of it too, of going through periods where my insulin is really, really low, right? I like the autophagy part of it. I find is I've tried every diet. I started working, like I said, I'm 60. I started working in gyms for the age of 16. And I read all like the best-selling books on different diet programs. And, you know, what was so popular earlier in my career with COVID Bailey, like the Fit or Fat books, and Dr. Ornish's book, and all the low carb type books. I did that diet for 10, 20 years, put all my clients on it, put myself on it. You know, now I'm more of a low carb, whole natural food eater. I would love this intermittent fasting. You know, I think for me, it's a great way to control calories without me having to look up all my food all the time, which I do from time to time anyway. I like MyFitnessPal. I do for that. And I do like the health benefits of it, but I also think the low carb eating is also really good too. You know, and a whole natural food diet is really good too. It's encompassing all that. I would say the fasting, the low carb, whole natural food eating, taking enough calories, and just keeping eating an adequate amount of protein is just key. You know, so thanks for the question. Hey, that was cool. Nicholas, I find that when I'm fasting to drink enough water, definitely I just get 2 liters of bottled water rather than drinking a glass. No, that sounds good. Plenty of water. Okay, one more question from Nicholas. Mike, I know this might be a funny question, but let's say you're in ketosis. If you pinch the area you want to lose fat on, will your body break down? Now, there's no real evidence. You know, there's a couple of silly studies talking about fasting may help with spot reducing. I know Thomas Delore did a video on that, and I kind of looked at the research a little bit. It wasn't that great. I don't think the research is really, I would say no, you really can't spot reduce in general. Generally, I would say no. Okay, so let's keep going. So we know our protein hacks, right? And okay, did I skip two? I wanted to show you guys some of. Oh yeah, this is the slide I want to see. Let's just generally talk about some protein sources. Okay, what's a good complete sources of protein? Obviously, animal protein, right? Like I said, every 4 ounces of poultry, fish, meat is about 25 grams of protein. So if you want to eat 50 grams of protein for dinner, for lunch, right? 8-ounce piece of fish, 8-ounce piece of steak, 8-ounce piece of turkey, something like that can give you 50 grams. I generally go higher. I go 10. I'll go 60, 70. You know, I do think I'm utilizing it. If you're concerned about taking in too much protein per meal, try to limit it to 50 grams, right? Okay, you know, eggs, dairy is great. Every egg is about 6 or 7 grams of protein. When it comes to dairy, my favorite source would be Greek yogurt, because Greek yogurt is more concentrated, like a little small Greek yogurt, 100 calories, 15 grams of protein, which is great. You know, other dairy sources. Sometimes I've been eating I love fresh mozzarella. Sometimes I have some of that. It's interesting. So I watched this video. My friend Brian, who shows up a lot here, he sent me this video of this jiu-jitsu champion. It's interesting. He fasts all day. He does like the OMAD diet. He gets most of his protein from like pizza and from like mozzarella cheese and all the different cheeses. It was kind of interesting. You know, there's a good amount of protein in mozzarella. Okay, plant proteins. You know, some are like soybean. Others need to be combined like rice and beans. Just be conscious that if you're eating a vegetarian, you're a vegan, just make sure you're taking in enough protein. Even if you have to really supplement your diet. I like pea and hemp seed protein. I think it's a great complete source of protein for vegetarians. You know, sure too. And you know, I love protein powders. I like the whey, the egg, the hemp, the pea. I like protein bars. I'm going to give you some examples. Just make sure you're taking in enough protein, right? Obviously, lean more towards whole foods as opposed to these powders and bars. But I think it's totally okay to do a protein shake, even 2 if you have to give you protein up, especially if you're a vegetarian or vegan. And I do like the protein bars too. Okay, let's go over. These are some of my favorite. You know, people always ask me, what are the brands, what are the protein powders I like? This is my favorite whey, which is Garden for Life. I like it because they use that real dairy. It's a whey protein isolate, so everything's stripped out of it. You're just getting the amino acid profile of dairy whey, and whey is just dairy. I love that one a lot too. I like the egg white protein if you want to avoid dairy. I love the hemp seed protein, right? Pea protein, great complete sources of protein, has all those non-essential amino acids. I do like collagen protein too, but keep in mind, collagen is really good for your skin, your hair, your nails, your connective tissue. You know, it's interesting because my new MRI, I read the report I just got. My last one was 2017. I have a little bit of arthritis in my knee, and it didn't get any worse at all in what, 5 years, which is, you know, which is great, I think. And I think part of that is due to the fact that I do take in a good amount of collagen protein, which is really good for the cartilage within your body. So, but keep in mind, it's not a complete protein. The collagen protein is missing tryptophan. So it shouldn't be your only source of protein, but I think it's great. And then I'm combining protein batters. Like sometimes I'll take a collagen, right, and to make it a complete protein, I'll throw in a scoop of whey, or I'll throw in a scoop of egg. So I'm getting all of those non-essential amino acids. Okay, so let's see what Gene's got to say. I was also mixing a tablespoon of Metamucil, oh I like that too, with my whey protein shake. But now I wonder if that's a good idea given the carb content. I wouldn't worry about that, Gene, because I think the net carbs, it's probably so low, right? Because it's all fiber. You're probably not even digesting it. I think it's soluble and insoluble, a combination. So maybe you're digesting a few, but I don't think you're going to get a spike in insulin from the Metamucil. You're going to experiment with it. I mean, try it and see what you think. Eliminate it and see what you think. You know, I think it's a good thing. I mean, unless you're getting a ton of fiber, like you're eating an avocado every day, which is 15, 17 grams, you're eating a lot of vegetables, and, you know, but on a very low calorie diet like you're doing, it's good, in my opinion, it's good to keep your fiber up. So you got to experiment. First do the shake with the Metamucil, see what you think. Then do the shake with the egg and the Metamucil. Then maybe eliminate the Metamucil. You know, just experiment. You got to figure out, just see how hungry you are like an hour later. you know. I mean, I don't want to drive you nuts. You could actually just buy one of those blood monitors and, you know, test your blood sugar if you really wanted to do it. But I think that's a little neurotic. I've done that stuff and I stopped doing it all. I wouldn't even want to wear one of those glucose monitors because I know myself. I'd be checking it every 2 minutes and drive myself crazy, you know. Okay. Okay, this is Nicholas. Got my first college day tomorrow. Hey, congratulations, Nicholas. That's great. So glad I lost the amount of weight. Yeah, you're going to be looking good, feeling good at college. I'm really happy for you. I'm supposed to lose all 10th. Okay, I'm supposed to lose all of this by August 10th. Maybe this was a blessing in disguise. The slower you lose the weight. I agree. I think you've done so incredibly well. 160 actually, I think even is a good weight for you. This is Jeff. They make a Metamucil with stevia. So if you get that one, probably no insulin spike. Oh, that sounds good. I was assuming that, Gene, that you were getting it without sugar in it. I didn't realize that. If you are taking a Metamucil that has sugar in it, yes, I would definitely switch to the stevia one for sure. But I was assuming you were. But thanks, Jeff. That's a good point. Great point. All right, so these are my favorite protein powders, and there's so many other ones that I think are really good. These are my favorite protein bars. Now, people get on my case and like, Mike, how can you recommend a processed protein bar? I think they're pretty good. Like, I love the Quest bar. My wife eats one every single day. It's a whey protein isolate, whey milk isolate. What I like about these bars so much is that they're so high in fiber, anywhere between 12 to like 17 grams of fiber in a Quest bar. I think Gene checked them out a little bit. And they're maybe, 200 calories, 170 calories. The net carbs are like 4 grams per bar. I mean, I think they're great. It's a great way to do the sneak in. You can even do that. And I wouldn't do that at the 10 o'clock thing, but that's a good thing to do in between your 2 meals if you're doing like a 2-mat type thing just to get an extra 20, 25 grams of protein. If you're a vegan or vegetarian, I love the no-cal bars. Same like profile, same setup as the Quest bar. 200 calories, they give you 20, 25 grams of protein, 12, 15, 17 grams of carbs. A fiber. The net carb very low. And this bar, I think, is a little questionable. This is more of a meal replacement because it is a little high in carbs, but I still think it's a good bar. This is an egg white. I know some people don't want to have dairy. Some people don't want to have these hemp seed or pea protein. So I want to give you another option, which is these RX bars. These are no BS bars because all they are like almonds, egg whites, and what's the other thing they put in there? Almonds, egg whites, and cashews. And they give you like 10, 12 grams of protein, a little less protein than the other two, and definitely more in carbs. But I think it's a good option as well too. So that's what Gene's got. On my very low calorie diet, the only carb and fiber I'm taking besides the Metamucil is from one Quest bar. So then I probably would want you to do the Metamucil. So you're probably getting, I think that those chocolate ones are 12 grams of fiber. Some of the other ones, like a birthday cake, maybe 17 grams of fiber. I'd like to see you more. So I would stick with the Metamucil if you can, as long as it's not making you really hungry. And I also would consider, Gene, maybe eating an avocado every day too. Without throwing your calories up too much. Or even half an avocado, I think would be a good thing to do too. Hey, Heidi. Hey, how you doing? Thanks for showing up. Okay, are you taking any creatine along with your protein? I find it always puffs up my face. Like, yes, me too, it puffs up my face. I am not taking creatine now, but I have cycled on and off it. No question about it. My face looks fuller. Just think, because it's similar to carbohydrates, say the more creatine your muscle holds, the more water you're going to hold. And the water goes to your face. It definitely makes you look more puffy. No question about it. So, I'll probably do creatine. And it's interesting because back to what I was talking about, Andrew Huberman, I forgot that now that creatine came up. That was another thing he talked about, which is incredibly good for lifting mood and incredibly good for depression, is taking anywhere between 1 to 5 grams of creatine a day. Besides the muscle effects, there's a lot of research on creatine when it comes to depression and just brain function and cognitive ability. He personally takes 5 grams of creatine, not necessarily for the enhanced like physical performance, but literally for his brain. So like fish oil, creatine, and exercise are so key for depression and mood. Good question though, but I love creatine. I think it's probably the best supplement you can possibly take when it comes to exercise for performance, for putting on muscle, maintaining muscle. It totally works. I think there's like almost no downside to it besides things like that. If you take too much of it, you can give you diarrhea. It could upset your stomach. it is going to make you hold water. You are going to gain weight. It's going to be some water weight. You're going to look muscular, but you're gaining water weight directly in the muscle cell itself. It volumizes the muscle cell, but it totally works. It makes you stronger. I'll probably do it again. I'm just not doing it right now, but I do agree with you. It can make your face look a little heavier. That's why women generally don't like creatine, even though they can probably use it. Plus, a vegetarian, because you get your creatine. I think 2.2 pounds, like a kilogram of red meat, is about 5 grams of creatine. So vegans are always low on creatine. So if you're a vegetarian or vegan, you take creatine, you can do really well. The people who don't really notice that much benefit from creatine is if you're eating like insane amount of red meat, or things like that. See, Jeff, my favorite protein bars are bullet bars. I've never tried the bullet bars. Those are Dave Asprey's what you're saying, right? I think the bulletproof coffee guy. Bullet rhymes with hilt. That's funny. I'm not sure. I just think they taste better, so it doesn't feel like a diet food. Tastes like a real dessert. Okay, bullet bars. I will definitely check them out, Jeff. Thanks for the tip. We'll definitely check them out. Okay, Mike. This is Nicholas. Mike, is it bad if I should be eating on a TUMAD but not hungry? Should I do on that? I just don't want you to overdo it. Nicholas, you've done so well. I'd probably rather you take your protein in 2 meals, split it up a little bit. I just don't want you to overdo it, but I think OMAD is fine too. Okay, hey, thanks for showing up. Have you looked into creating HCl? It absorbs better and does not cause bloat. It's great for recovery. I'm not sure what you mean by HCl. I'm so bad with these abbreviations. Just leave it a comment. Let me know about what you mean by HCl. Gwen, I got these 3 meat omelet rounds from HEB. They are 18 grams protein, 170 calories. Is that a good meal? Okay, I got these 3. Okay, I'm sorry. Now I can see it better. I've got these 3 meat omelets. They are 108. Okay, I've got these 3 meat omelet. They are 18 grams protein, 270 calories. Is that a good meal? Okay, to me, 18 grams of protein. Just think, there's 4 calories per gram of protein. Okay, so 18 grams of protein, 40, 80. I'm not sure where the other calories are coming from. To me, that's a relatively low protein omelet. Unless if the rest of the calories are like a healthy fat from the egg, I think it's fine. But if they're adding other things to it, I would be a little questionable about it. I'm not sure about that one, Gwen. To me, I'd rather the calories come a little bit more from the protein. 18 grams of protein, said 270 calories. That's kind of high in calories for that amount of protein. Okay, Gene. It's an original sugar-free Metamucil. And keep in mind, I'm taking 3 whey shakes. Okay, fine. Okay, that sounds good. If you're doing 3 whey protein shakes to keep your protein up, I would definitely take the Metamucil with it, because you want the fiber, plus it'll low down the glycemic index of it. But like I say, maybe consider adding a little bit of fat to that. Are you dating? And plus too, I wonder if you're getting enough of those omega-3s. So maybe you want to put a little fish oil in that, Gene, if you don't mind. That might not be a bad idea, to get your omega-3s up. Unless when you do eating your protein, you're eating fish a lot, I don't know why I'm not. Hey, Jeff. Okay, sounds good. Rhymes with guilt. That's right. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I think so. I think so. I mean, I love eggs. If you were gonna make yourself, I think what you're talking about is some like pre-made type thing. I love whole eggs. Like if you're gonna just make yourself an egg omelet, I think that's great. And you throw a little like spinach in there, or you can even maybe add some turkey to it or some avocado. But protein, yes, protein will be a much low calorie protein source than those eggs you're talking about, the omelets you're talking about. Unless you're making those, if you're making those omelets yourself, I think you can do it and keep the calories under control and keep the protein up. And I find the key, like a mistake people make when they're making an omelet or just making eggs, is make sure you don't make it with like those vegetable oils. Like don't use corn oil, don't use those seed oils. You know, I would just use olive oil when I'm making an omelet. Or a little, if you want to use a little avocado oil or even some whatchamacallit, some the other oil, like not the MCT oil, but the coconut oil, you do something like that. And I wouldn't be concerned about olive oil having a low burn rate. The polyphenols, there's so many good things in olive oil. I would just cook with olive oil almost all the time. Okay, creatine hydrochloride, about 2 grams a day, has been helpful for me. Oh, that sounds good. I never tried the hydrochloride. I don't normally go, the monohydrate generally, but I've never tried the hydrochloride. So Nicholas loves lamb. I think lamb's great too. I think that's bigger in the UK as well too. Me in the kitchen is a disaster. All right, when you go with the chicken then, always keep hard-boiled eggs on hand. I think that's great too. Boil up, you can do that. Always keep, like, I boil up like 6 hard-boiled eggs. Always keep them in the refrigerator. Want to grab something, I grab a hard-boiled egg. I love that. It's so easy to do. And one key to do it, this is what I do. This is like kind of a trick, because I find peeling an egg really annoying. If you take a pin and you make a little pinhole on the end of a hard-boiled egg and then put it in boiling water, like a little bit of water goes in the egg and it just kind of cooks. It cooks it from the outside, and you can just twist it like this. It gets unpeeled in a blink. It's great. And I like to boil my eggs for like 10 minutes like that. Comes out like perfect and great every time. All right, so let's go into my normal Q&A with some meal examples. I always like to show you like how I'm eating lately. I posted this, I think, on the Facebook page. This is one of my meals, and see how I'm always like prioritizing protein whenever I'm eating. So what have we got here? This is literally a whole pound of Gulf shrimp. I didn't eat the whole pound, but a whole pound of Gulf shrimp would be about 100 grams of protein. I must have ate probably 70 grams of protein. I probably ate like almost 2/3 of this, maybe more. I just made the whole thing and put it in the bowl because it looks good. And these were from the Gulf. They were pre-cleaned. So easy to make. You boil them in hot water for like 2 or 3 minutes. No, thanks, Kerry. Thanks for showing up. I appreciate it. And then I have my typical. I think this salad was a combination of arugula and spinach salad. You know, I always talk about arugula. I love arugula and spinach for the nitrates. They're naturally high in nitrates, which convert to nitric oxide within the body, which is so good for blood flow and things like that. I put in like an onion. I just threw in maybe just 5 or 6 cherries cut in half. Season this with extra virgin olive oil and a little bit of balsamic vinegar. So I'm getting the vinegar to help control blood sugar. And this is a pretty low carb meal when you think about it. Just think of how much carbs are in arugula. The net carbs in arugula is next to nothing. Little bit maybe from the cherries. And if you notice here, my son, I just visited my son at college. It was great. I helped him go there. I love seeing him there. He turned me on to these ginger shots. I've been doing these ginger shots every day. They are 20 calories though, but I love them. This particular one is a combination of ginger and a little bit of hemp oil. They give you a nice bite, and I just love it. I've been doing those lately as well, which has been a lot of fun. Okay, this is something from Jeff. Gwen, let's see. Gwen, check your HEB for bags of hard-boiled eggs. They usually have them in 6-packs, and they are already cooked. Oh, interesting. So you can just grab a couple of the fridge. That's interesting. Thanks, Jeff. That's great. Nicholas, I love catfish. Yeah, great, cool. Hey, Gene, that's what Gene's got to say. To be precise, okay, I'm taking 3 whey shakes a day, along with 2 tablespoons of Metamucil in each shake, and a hard-boiled egg alongside shake. Gene, love it. I got to look up because I'm not sure how many grams of fiber are in 2 teaspoons because I haven't taken Metamucil in a while, but I think it's great. I love it. I think that sounds great. So I think you're getting a good amount of protein there. I love that you're getting a little bit of fat and stuff with the whole egg, plus a little bit more protein. I love it. And I'm assuming, you know, your bowel movements are good and all that, you know. So if all that's good, and just, you know, also make sure you're taking in enough water when you make that protein shake. I would take in a minimum because you're getting the fiber. I take in 16 ounces. Even if you got to drink a glass of water after you have the shake, just make sure you're taking in enough water for sure. Oh, crayfish. Oh, I didn't realize that. Sometimes I read so fast. Crayfish, cool. I never had crayfish, to be truthful with you. Okay, we'll check those things out, Jeff. That's Gwen. Cool, thanks. I love when people talk to each other in the room, which is great. Let's look at this meal. Oh, that's I just showed you that one. Oh, here's my, I've been back on my sauerkraut lately. Okay, another thing, I guess that really had a big effect on me, that Andrew Huberman podcast, because he also talked about how the gut-to-brain barrier is good for mood, good for depression, good for health, that you want to eat fermented foods. and he brought up a study where people who ate fermented food 3 times a day, improved mood, had so many health benefits. So I'm back to eating my sauerkraut every single day, and I buy that 𝘾𝙃𝙄𝙉𝙂 brand. I love it. So I got some sauerkraut here, and I'm doing this a couple times a day. And I even buy their pickles, which is, and some people say, oh, pickles or vinegar pickles and all that, but they ferment them naturally. So in my opinion, when you buy those naturally fermented pickles, it's a fermented food, so you're feeding the good bacteria within your stomach. So this is like a perfect lunch to have. Some sauerkraut, avocado. Like I say, I'm always prioritizing protein. This can of sardines is like 20-25 grams. Then I added another 4 ounces of smoked salmon. Both these foods high in omega-3s, 50 grams of protein right there. And then just to make it fun, just some raspberries, some blueberries, little polyphenols, little antioxidants, it just makes it just a few berries, which are relatively low sugar fruit, I think makes every meal taste so good, especially a salad, especially a meal like this, which is, makes it so much more palatable and more fun to eat. What brand of sauerkraut? Yeah, Carrie, like I said, I buy 𝘾𝙃𝙄𝙉𝙂. I wish I had a picture. If I can, let me see. Let me quickly, because it's such a good brand. Let me see if I can quickly. I'm gonna change camera angles because I would want to do this to see if I can. I'm gonna see if I can. I don't think I can, because normally I know I have a picture of theirs. I'll show you a picture next time. It's 𝘾𝙃𝙄𝙉𝙂. It's a local brand. All their thing. They're big on sauerkraut. They're big on pickles. They have some other things, and it's all naturally fermented, like the old-fashioned ways. And it's real. I think it's good. Somewhat expensive though. Like I buy that big jar of sauerkraut. It could be $7-8. I buy it on sale on Whole Foods. I just bought 2 of them because they were like $6.99 at Whole Foods. Really love it. Okay, we got that. I'm hitting the wrong buttons here. Let's get rid of this one. Let's close. Okay, hold it. Let's close this one out. Let's close that one out. See what we got. Okay, not sure why this is not closing. There we go. Okay, I think I've showed you this dinner before, but this is what I think is another perfect dinner. A salmon steak, a nice salmon steak. That's probably 10-12 ounces of steak. Now I got my red beets. Beets are also high in nitrates, which convert to nitric oxide. Then I made a little bit of a like spinach arugula salad with tomato. And my rule is 2, especially when it comes to dinner. Nice big piece, nice serving of animal protein, chicken, fish, and meat. I lean towards fish, and I always go with 2 different colored vegetables minimum, different vitamins, different minerals, different nutrients. So this is we get the red beets. Some people say beets are a little on the sugary side. They are, but beets are still so good for you. Beets actually help exercise performance. They're so high in nitrates. So is the arugula. So we get the red beets, the red tomatoes, the green spinach, and the green arugula. This is how you have to eat. You can't eat, in my opinion, you can't eat better than this. And here's typical salad of a salad I would eat, which I love, prioritizing protein. So we got a nice, once again, arugula salad. I think I got strawberries in this one. You probably can't see it, but there's some avocado there, some sliced onion, seasoned with extra virgin olive oil and balsamic vinegar, and then a nice big serving of chicken. I must have probably 8 to 10 ounces, maybe a little bit more of chicken. I like to make my chicken. I buy it pre-cut from the butcher, really, really thin, olive oil in the pan. I kind of sear it pretty quickly. It only takes like 3 minutes. This whole meal, all my meals take like less than 10 minutes to make. And I like to season it with oregano. I think oregano is one of my favorite spices. I always have onion and garlic powder a little bit. Salt, pepper. It comes out incredible. I mean, this is how you have to eat. And it's not as caloric as it look. A big salad like that, I mean, how I make it is really not that caloric. I just love it. I mean, this is how I think you should eat. Let's pull up another one. Let's see what I got here. Ooh, that's another good one. Let's see what Juicy got. I mean, what Nicholas has to say. My body is actually really well behaved because when I went on a diet break up to maintenance, I did not gain a single pound. Well, that's a really good sign. That's a good sign. Nicholas, having a carb deficit is better than no carbs, in my opinion. Okay, sounds good. Okay, and this is typical. I like to vary the fish. I think this is, what is this? This is probably Arctic. Looks to me like Arctic chard. Nice serving, could be 10-12 ounces. Once again, 2 different colored vegetables. I got my asparagus, is one of my favorite vegetables. I love cauliflower. and cauliflower. But it's important to go with 2 different colors. That's the other point I wanted to drive home. Okay, so let's see. Do I have any other meals? That may have been the last one. Let me make sure. Yep, I think we covered that one. We covered that. My sauerkraut. Right. And juicy. There we go. There we go, guys, gals. We made it. Another live stream done. All right. So any more questions before I hit the road and do my Sunday fasted walk? I think there's a little bit rainy in New York. You know, I hate when the summer ends. But we're already getting a couple of those cold days, which is so disappointing for me. I love the summer. I love being tan. I love being at the beach. I love walking in the heat. I like the heat. I can easily live in like warm weather all around. But let's see. Any other questions? Here's what Jeff's got some. Look up my last comment. Okay, Jeff, let's see. Let's scroll back. Okay, 1 week until my fall tennis season starts, Mike. Okay, so it's tennis season is going to start for Jeff. Should I lift more weights this week or do more hit type training? Probably if your main concern is, you know, having just good wind, having good endurance, good cardiovascular, like VO2 max strength for tennis, I would say do the hit training. But if you're concerned that when you start playing all that tennis, you start, you know, you don't do much resistance training, you know, you only got a week though, to be truthful with you. So, you know, you may want to muscle up, you know, for a week so you gain a pound of muscle. I mean, it's hard to say. I probably would go more with hit because hit is more so similar to tennis. You know, maybe do some dynamic movement drills, you know, like doing forward lunges, sideways lunges, rotational lunges, doing things like that, and do some hit training. Because, you know, tennis, you get everything. It's such a dynamic, you know, you're all over the court. You're moving in multi-plane directions. It's, you know, such an incredible sport, tennis. I loved playing tennis as a kid. I used to be good when I was a teenager. I even won some tournaments. Then I kind of like, you know, lost it. But I love tennis. Kind of hard to say, you know. But I hope you still have time, even with the tennis, to squeeze in a couple of short resistance training workouts a week, even if it's just 20 minutes, you know. I'm sure you're getting tons of leg work, even if you just did some push-ups and some pull-ups, or even just push-ups a couple days a week along with the tennis. I think would be good for you, Jeff. Okay. Nicholas, gotta bulk up my confidence for tomorrow, but I'm getting there. Yeah, it sounds good. You're gonna love college. College is the best time in your life. You're gonna love it. My kids love it. You're gonna love it. Oh, thanks, Gene. You have a good week too, Jane. Looking forward to see how you're doing next week. All right, guys. Let me give it one more minute for any other questions. Me too. You made a last comment. Okay, I missed one of your comments, Gene. Let's see. Is it this? Did I get this one? To be precise, I'm taking 3-way shakes along with, you know, I think we talked about that. So I don't know, maybe it didn't come through, Gene, if you asked a question, but I'll give you another minute if you want to ask it. Me too. I made a last comment. I'll give you another minute, Gene, in case you want to re-ask that question. Maybe it just didn't come through. Thanks, Carrie. Thanks for showing up. I appreciate it. Thanks for showing up. Have a great walk. Oh, I appreciate it. You know, Gene, let me look on the phone because I don't want to miss your comment. Let me see. Maybe it's on my phone. Let's see what we got. Let's see. I know sometimes, you know, but I'm glad with how this live stream went, considering I'm streaming with my phone. Me too. I made a last comment. Have a good week, Mike. I think I got it, Gene. I'm sorry. All right, guys. That's it. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. I just want to make another note for this 9/11. Yeah, you know, it's a day we're never going to forget in the U.S. and really around the world. And we had so much support around the world after that, so I really appreciate it. And take care out there. You know, have a wonderful, wonderful week. And I'm looking forward to seeing everyone next Sunday. Thanks, Nicholas, and good luck at college tomorrow. You are going to absolutely love it. Believe me. Okay, take care, everyone.